everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. As always, I'm one of your hosts, John, and sitting across from me is Dean.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so this episode here, we've got some interesting content today. I think for those of you that are in the know with the Pokemon world, your Pokemon life has, at least for the card games, has been a little shaken up here.
Especially in the competitive scene. Oh yeah, it's definitely been a nice roller coaster for the last, 5 or so days since we got this announcement drop.
Just a little bit. So for those that don't know what's happening, Pokemon has changed how you are going to qualify for Worlds. And that has either made some people happy, has made some people upset. I've seen a lot of different reactions to how the news is going to be taken.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what type of player you are. Like you said, the reactions have been from one end of the spectrum to the other. Some people are really happy about it. Some people are really mad about it. I've been hearing people talking how they're trading in the whole entire collection because they can't there's no way for them to make it the Worlds, as we'll talk about later on in this episode. And it's just been an interesting 5 days hearing different opinions on it from all the creators out there and just from our own friends as well. So yeah, today we're just going to talk about this new structure, how it's different from the old structure, and what our thoughts are, because we are semi-competitive. We're not, to be honest, this really isn't going to affect us that much.
No.
But it does. There is some impacts for us as being local players that play competitive decks and take this game seriously. So we'll explain that in this episode.
All right. So for those that don't know how the Worlds qualifying structure is going into this Worlds, which happens next month now. We're already in July. Holy cow.
Yeah.
But next month in August will be the Worlds for this year, the 2023-2024 season. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what it was like to qualify for Worlds leading into this season. And then we'll go into how the changes that have been announced are going to impact how you qualify for next season, the 2024-2025 season. So with the current structure, you had to qualify with 600 championship points if you were a master.
In the North American region.
Correct.
Every region was different, but for us being in North America, it was 600.
And so the way that you did that is by finishing in top placements at your local challenges, your local cups, going to regionals and getting top placements, and also your international championships. Now, normally if you got first place at a monthly challenge, you would get, I believe it was 15 points.
Yep, 15.
If you got second, you were getting 12, and then third and fourth were getting 10 championship points.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
After that, if you go to your quarterly cups, if you got first place, it was 50 championship points. And then if you start working your way down, you started getting lower. I can't remember all the breakdowns there.
Yeah, I don't remember the cups. Never happened to me, so.
And then at the regionals and special event levels, I think it was if you got first place, you got
200.
You got 200 championship points, but you also got your automatic invite to Worlds.
Except for the specials not in Europe. In Europe, it was an automatic Worlds invite. Any other specials, it was just a 200 CP.
That's right.
Which is still a lot.
That is a lot. And then for your international championships, again, if you got first place, you got your automatic invite. But I think you also ended up with, 500 championship points?
That would be 500. And even though there were auto invites for winning the internationals and winning the regionals, the points still matter because you still got the stipends between every IC. So if you were in the top, I think it was top 16, you either got a travel stipend or travel award. So even though you win, you still need those points to earn those stipends and awards from TPCI.
Right.
So the points still mattered even though you have a auto invite.
Right. And so that, along with the monetary and the pack pricing structure, was reasons to go. I mean, you got what was nice is you got what are called best finishes. So let's say that we went to 6 challenges. So over 6 months, even within 2 months, if we went to 3 different shops and played in the challenges and we got our top finishes, we could have 2 first places, 2 second places, and then a couple third or fourth places. But over the season, if we went and then went to a challenge and won that challenge, we could replace one of our lower level finishes because it's your top 6 best finishes. And that happened for every single category. So that was your challenges, your cups, your regionals and special events, and then there was only 3 international championships.
So those were unlimited anyway.
Those were unlimited anyways. It's important to note these because as we go into the talking about the new structure, that's going to change. So with the old structure, the way I've heard some people describe it is they viewed Worlds as a hoorah. It was like that was your prize for doing well all season and really going out and playing Pokemon and competing. It was this big party that you got to go to because you did so well. And I can completely understand that from a player perspective of, awesome, I've put all this time and effort into it. This is my kind of time to shine. I'm playing against supposedly the best players in the world, and it's really fun to be able to see Pokemon appreciate me as a player.
And I know some people that got the Worlds invite. A lot of people, depending where you're at and like how serious you took the game, once they got their invite, they were done. They did not go to any more tournaments because for them it didn't matter. They weren't going to get those stipends. If they did well in other regionals or even other ICs, if they had that opportunity, it wasn't changing their status. So with last season or this season, depending on how you want to look at it, depending on where you were at with how many points you had, some people stopped, and I get it. They were using that opportunity to work or game or trying to get more money for their travel to Hawaii. Like, Hawaii is not cheap to get to, so I get it, especially with where our friends are at. But then some people just played all season and try to get either the top 16 or they try to get the travel awards, so that way they have a little easier of a time to get to Worlds. And we mentioned that because that changes a little bit with the new structure as well.
Right. And so with that, we then have to think about what PTCI, or the Pokemon Trading Card Game International, TPCI, the Pokemon Company International, was trying to do with how they restructured Worlds for this year, because there was a restructure from last year in Japan to this year in Hawaii, and that was they raised the point total on qualification. So I believe it went from 550 up to 600 this past year.
I think it was 500 to 600. It was a full 100 points.
So that is a decent amount of point differential to cover in a year. But according to the numbers that have registered, that didn't work.
This is the biggest Worlds to date,
and
with the harder CP threshold.
And they bumped the championship point threshold, not just for the US, the North American region. They bumped it for everybody. Now, obviously, Japan and some of the other Asian countries have different qualification standards. We're not going to comment towards those because that's just a completely different format.
I don't know what TPC, like those countries, I don't understand their structure.
Right.
So we're just talking about the regions that are part of the TPCI, so EU, NA, Latin America, Oceania.
Yeah.
That's all we're going to be talking about.
So, and they still have, their whole point was to lower the amount, because having that many people go to Hawaii,
Yeah.
that wasn't the goal there. So, with that, we need to understand and kind of talk about what Pokemon's goals are. And we need to think about, now Pokemon doesn't necessarily come out and explain what their goals are for why they're making this change, but it's kind of obvious to see the way that they're going. And the way that they're going is they want Worlds to be the most competitive top level players that they can get. They're trying to push this towards like, hey, you guys are saying that you want Pokemon to be competitive, so we're going to make it competitive. Because there has been talk about, oh, well, what happens if we just do a tournament of the top players, like Tord, like Azul, like Bradner, like...
Kind of like what they do in Japan already. There's a
Right.
tournament every year to determine the Elite Four, so the top 4 players in the Japanese circuit.
Right. And so there's been talk about that, and everybody was kind of going, well, isn't that what Worlds is supposed to be? So with that, we now have the new structure going forward on how Pokemon is explaining you're going to get your Worlds invites. You're going to qualify for Worlds. And so with that, there is no longer a point threshold. It is only the top X amount of players in each division from each region. So, in North America or the US and Canada, for your juniors, you're going to have 75 qualifications. For senior, you're going to have 100. For masters, you're going to have 125. That is insane, because that is going to completely take out a lot of who qualifies.
And if you look at the numbers from this year compared to these new numbers, there were approximately 270 masters that qualified based on the 600 CP. Maybe, give or take, maybe a couple for those who got the auto invite from winning a regional, but a lot of those players got it by CP anyway.
Right.
So you're going from 270 to 125.
That is more than 50% of the field being cut.
Yeah.
That's insane. So that's something that is interesting. So the way that they're going to do it is you're still going to have a championship point total. You're still going to have point totals for your cups, your challenges, your regionals. Best finishes are going to change, as well as your best finish amount is going to change for your cups, your challenges, and your regionals. So that's going to change some things. Also, the amount of points that you're going to get for those regional finishes and stuff like that is going to change as well.
Yeah, they jumped up on the regional and above level. The amount of points you get for doing well in a tournament have jumped significantly.
Right. So, for the point totals, first off, we need to talk about actually best finish limits. It used to be that you could get 6 challenges and 6 cup best finishes. That has been reduced down to 4 per category. So you are now losing out on... The points haven't changed. So if you finish first, you're still going to get 15 points. If you finish for a challenge.
And then 50 for a cup, yeah.
Right. So the point total for winning those hasn't changed. It's just that you are no longer going to have 2 of those adding to your point total. So you're losing out on a total of 130 points towards your total if you max out your top finishes in those.
So with that, it looks like, based on how they've adjusted the best finish limits, they're really pushing for players to go to the regional level and above.
Right. And so with that, but what I've also noticed is that they've changed the kicker for participants as well with point totals. So for those that don't know, depending on how many people you have at a tournament, depends how many people below the top 4 actually get points. So for example, if you have 17 people at a challenge, which we didn't actually, we've been hitting that. And before our challenges, you were only getting, if you were top 4, points. Now, if you finished 5th through 8th, you're getting 8 points. That is enticing for you to go to actual challenges now because, hey, I'm actually still getting points if I don't finish top 4. It used to be, oh, if we didn't make top 4, there's no point in looking at the standings. I didn't get points.
Yeah, I believe the kicker for the 2023-2024 season was 21 players.
Right, and we were right on that bubble every single time.
And I remember going to my first challenge of the season. It was before they made that announcement, and I got top 8 at a challenge. I'm like, oh, I didn't get points, and then they made this announcement. I checked my account online, and they retroactively gave me my 8 points. So I'm like, oh, I got a top placement because we had, I think, like 23 people at that tournament.
Right.
So yeah, now it's down to 17, and it's like you said, it's more enticing because now you can actually get points, and it'll go towards your best finish limits. Obviously, you can always replace them later on. We have all season because really 4 is not hard to get.
Right.
Depending on where you live. Like for us, living in the part of Florida that we're in, we already filled up our calendar for events to go to in July, and there's 1 or 2 events for us to go to every week.
Right. So we definitely have a lot of ability to go fill those out there. But also now with cups, if you have a limit of 60, if you have a kicker of 65 people, your top 17 through 32, they're getting 16 points. That wasn't a thing before. Like, so a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's no longer enticing because there's no way I can make worlds. You can still have a challenge within yourself. You can have a challenge within your team. Mm-hmm. If you have a team of people or a group of people that you play with, of who's doing the best. Shops can even make it of, hey, we're going to keep track of how many points you get. If you come to X amount of challenges or cups for a season and you have a certain amount of points, we'll give you some extra packs or something. Something to entice people to come into, because we know that not everybody is going to make worlds now. Mm-hmm. So there is some enticing things that are going on there. Now, your regionals and international championship levels, this is where things are going to get interesting, because you're given your top 6 in both of those categories combined. Mm-hmm. That is where that's interesting. It is. So the point totals will be different, but you get your top 6 finishes combined in those. So they're really pushing for people to go to these, because one thing that I heard somebody say, which I actually really like this philosophy here, you're going to have people that have the ability to go to all the regionals, all the internationals. They just have the ability to do that. Some of us, like you and me, that are working every day, like we don't have that ability to go to those. But if somebody who goes to 6 regionals and places top 512 in those gets points for those and is qualifying for Worlds, is that person at the same caliber level as someone who can maybe only go to 3 regionals and international championship and can place top 110, 128. Sorry, I'm trying to remember my numbers there. So top 128. Are they at the same caliber of play? Are they the same caliber player? And I think that's where people need to start, unfortunately, making that switch in the mindset, where for some of us, if we've been competitive people through other things like sports, like I play competitive softball outside of playing Pokemon too. So I'm just a competitive person by nature. But to me, if I'm going to a world championship, I want to play against the best people. I want to be like, hey, I'm at this caliber of player, so I want to play against those caliber player people. And so I think that's going to be a hard switch for people to make of, it's no longer a point chase. It's no longer how many can I go to, how many best finishes can I get because of the point chase. And it's, no, if I'm going to these, I have to play the best Pokemon that I can play every single time to make the points count.
Yeah, it changes the mindset of the competitive player. I would say more or less of maybe the semi-competitive player.
Right.
Because it goes from, okay, what is the bare minimum for me to get my Worlds invite? And a lot of people are like, okay, I just need to get points, or they're calculating. And by the end of the season, people are like, oh, I only have to get like top 512 and I got my Worlds invite. With how this new system goes, it encourages you playing to your best of the ability at whatever tournament you can go to the entire season. Because the limited amount of people that can make it, and just how competitive it's going to be. Because 125, that's not a lot of people making, especially in North America and in EU.
Yeah. So now with the regional and special events and international championships, the point count has actually gone up.
Yes, it has.
So if you get first at a regional or a special event, you're getting 350 points instead of 200. And if you get first at an international championship, you're getting 750 points. Now, with that, there is some things for the qualifications as well. If you get first at a regional, you are getting an automatic invite.
And then you're taking off that board of the top 125. You don't
count towards that.
Yeah, you're already there.
No matter what place you were, let's say one of us got a first place finish and at a regional, and we were number 100. We would get bumped out of that list, and they would move everybody up one spot. Mm-hmm. So everybody gets bumped who has automatic invites gets bumped out, but your point total is still going to equate to stipends. Now, we're not going to go into the whole stipend format because that's a little complicated there, and for outside of the bounds of what we're really going to talk about today.
Yeah.
But for the actual point count, that is important because by taking somebody out, it is bumping other people up. Now, you shouldn't be banking on that. If you're bubbling around 120, you should be trying to push to get farther up that list. And but it does give some people a little bit of wiggle room there. Now, the other thing is point totals for everybody is going up. So, for example, if you finish the final kicker is 2,049 participants. Most of the regionals that towards the end of this season were hitting well above that. Mm-hmm. If you finish top 1024, so basically top 1,000 people, you're getting 20 points at a regional or a special event. If you finish top 24 at an international, you're getting 40 points. So it's still enticing you to do well. Because even top 1024, that's people that didn't make day 2.
That's like 50% of people that are playing in the tournament.
Right. So, again, if you're having those special competitions between your friends, if you're doing all that kind of stuff, that's going to entice people to do well. Now, the other interesting thing is that regionals, special events, and internationals, they have changed how you're making day 2, which makes me want to cry because that was one of my goals, and we're going to talk about how our goals are going to change a little bit going into the season, but they have made it harder to make day 2, which I can understand because you worked Orlando, I was with you for Orlando, so we didn't drive home until you were done working Orlando, and that was one of the biggest day 2 finishes for a regional ever. There was over 250 people that made day 2, right around there.
Around that number, yeah.
So and they still all have to do their 6 rounds on day 2, and then go into the top cut for top 8 and all that. Just, there's a lot. So they have set it so there's different number of participants. Your average regional is going to be anywhere from a 2,049 to 4,096 amount. They have lowered the amount of total Swiss rounds.
They have.
So instead of 15 Swiss rounds, we're now down to 13. So that means to make your point total to be top 8, you've got 2 less rounds. Have fun. You've got to really make sure your games count and win. That, to me, is taking away from the people that were playing control and stall, because you were hoping that you get those longer games and possibly tie, if not win. You don't want to tie anymore. Ties they're kind of getting away from you wanting to tie because or even intentionally draw. Now, for your win and in game, if you're both gonna ID to get into day 2, that makes a little bit of sense. But now it doesn't, because now you have 2 less games. So I think they're trying to get rid of those IDs into day 2. I think they're trying to get rid of specific types of decks that are causing games to run long, because then that slows down not only your game, but everybody else that's waiting to play the next round, because we got to wait for your game to finish. And when you have over 2,500 people waiting for the next round, that's a lot of people waiting to play. So I think that they're trying to get rid of that. But you're still going to have your 9 rounds of Swiss day 1 if you have over that 2,049 threshold. If you don't, you go down to 8, and it slowly rolls down depending on how many people you have. The lower amount of people, the less rounds you have in day 1, to a point where, granted, I don't think we're ever going to have in our region a special event or a regional that's less than 64 people. But there is those cases where you have that, where you're only going to have 1 day of play and you've got 7 rounds. So they are raising and lowering the amount of rounds that you're going to play based off of the amount of people there. But they're also upping the match points that you need to make day 2. Match points used to be, no matter what, you have your 9 rounds of Swiss on day 1, and you have to hit 19 points to make day 2. It is now 21.
You have to go 7 and 2.
7 and 2
or 603.
603, which is insane.
Yeah, I remember playing in Charlotte and just getting 6-2-1. That was hard enough as it is, especially a player at my level. And now you have to go 7-2. Not a lot of players go 7-2. Like, if you ever look at whoever made day 2 with this last season, majority of the players that make day 2 are at that 6-2-1 mark.
Right.
And now it's like, wow, because of the threshold, I would say the amount of people making day 2 is probably going to be half.
Right. I can agree with that. But that also means that you're getting higher caliber players in day 2. Which is then going to cause the field to be even better, because no offense, and I would feel like I would be in this way in the same position, but let's say at Charlotte you hit Azul Garcia. You playing Azul Garcia versus you playing me, those are 2 completely different games.
Oh, yeah.
Those are 2 completely different outcomes. And we want to see the people that are at Azul's level playing against each other. Now, there's not a lot of people at Azul's level. Azul is one of the greatest players ever. But that's the kind of comparison I have to make there of why they're doing this.
Oh, yeah, they definitely want the caliber to be higher. They want the experience of a day 2 to be higher.
Right.
They want the best of the best to play at these regionals, and they're trying to more or less become an esport. Like, if you're going to make day 2, if you're going to get the prizing from Pokemon, you need to earn it. It's not just, okay, I can come and I can have... Yeah.
It's sacrifice. Like, I hate to put it that way, but Andrew Mahone put it perfectly that way. If you want to be competitive in anything, if you want to succeed at anything, there's going to be some sacrifice involved. And you've got to be willing to realize, what are you willing to sacrifice to make that happen?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I understand for some people, they don't want to do that. And so it takes the fun out of playing Pokemon for them. I'm sorry to see that happen. As a professor, I want to see the community grow. I want people to have fun. We can still make locals be fun. Unfortunately, that does mean that it puts it on the shops a little bit to kind of provide that fun, but that's what locals are supposed to be. That was the whole point of locals. So I like where they're going with this of the competitiveness is going to be competitive, but you can still have fun at your locals.
I think removing that carrot of the only way to enjoy Pokemon, especially at a higher level, is to go do well and make worlds, and seeing a lot of people qualify. Removing that carrot, it's like, let's just enjoy this game. Challenge yourself, know where you're at whatever level of trainer you are, and set a goals appropriately.
Right.
Like, for us, like, we never, like, in our first episode, we never made a goal of, I'm going to top 8 a regional, I'm going to win a regional. One, we're probably not going to go to that many. Right. But we also know, like, who we have to go against. and just our play set. Like, we want to make achievable goals.
Right.
So this new structure, how Pokemon is introducing everything, I think this is the season to really reevaluate where you're at skill level wise, and just play the game because you enjoy the game, but also make goals to where you're going to have fun playing the game too, and it's not going to be something that drags you down or makes you exhausted. 'Cause there's people that went to every single event. I don't know how you can do that.
I don't know.
I don't have those resources. If
either.
you did, more power to you.
Right.
I'm just not in that position.
No, I get it. So the other cool thing that I think that they're doing, and this will be the last kind of topic for this new season before we go into our goals, they're changing how the top 8 cuts work for day for day 2 regionals as well, and international championships. So for those that don't know, what would happen is based off your total match points, you would get a top 8 cut, and it would be a single elimination tournament down to your finals out of the top 8. The problem with that is there were people that would all finish with the same match points for top 8, like 8th last spot. And sometimes it was even all the way down to number 6, like 6, 7, and 8 were all tied. So the way that they worked that out is they would look at your opponent's win percentage and then the opponents of your opponent's win percentage. And we've talked about that before, how I should have gotten first place at a tournament, but I tied with 3 other people, and
You got third.
I got third because of those all those statistics matching up, and then it just being a coin flip. And a lot of times at regionals, that sometimes happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so to get rid of that, what they're doing is now, if you tie match points wise with the person that is going to get 8th place, everybody plays in the single elimination tournament.
Mm-hmm. It's called an asymmetrical cut. They did this a couple years ago at Worlds. The Worlds where the COVID Worlds,
Right.
where it was like 2 seasons in one. They did that. In that sense, only one player benefited from it, and it was actually Cal Connor, who's a great player, and now he's one of the best out there, especially in North America. It made him play in the top cut of Worlds. Granted, I don't think he went past the first round, but the fact that you can still play in top cut of Worlds and say, I made top 8, that's, one, your money changes. There's so many things that change by just making a top cut.
Right. And so basically what you're doing by what we mean by an asymmetrical cut is, yes, it's still a single elimination tournament, but basically everybody that is tying for that 8th spot is going to battle it out to get that 8th spot, and then the normal top cut tournament goes through. So it is going to be interesting because now it's giving those people that got top 8, it's giving them more time to rest before they have to play their top 8 matches.
Mm-hmm.
So those people that are getting the 8th position, they've been battling to get into it, they're now having probably more mental fatigue, more exhaustion. So that's going to possibly change how those first place versus 8th place cuts game matches are going to go. There's a whole lot of different factors that you now have to think about going into that. I personally like it because that's similar to how like my softball tournaments go. It's a double elimination, so it's a little different. But if you lose one match, you can work your way back. So okay, you lost one match in day 2 and you tied with 8th place. You still have a way to work your way back. Mm-hmm. It's not the end of the world like it used to be. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I personally am liking the structure. It's going to make for some interesting tournaments. It's going to make for some interesting deck changes because I think it's now going to force us to a standard more like Japan where they're best of ones. They're all playing very consistent every single match. The deck performs the exact same way. Some of the decks that have been performing well in our formats are considered high roll decks. You're hoping, perfect example, Miraidon. You are hoping to hit energies on those electric generators.
Mm-hmm.
That may not be the best thing to do going into a format where you need to ensure you're at the very least winning 6 matches and tying 3. this could completely change how our standard formats and metagames are going to play out.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting to see.
I'm excited to see how this new season will go. Seeing how it goes in the local level. We are recording this a couple days into the new season, so people have been playing in challenges and cups already.
Yep.
So there's already names on the leaderboard. Just seeing where this goes and how this affects your, like you said, your deck choice, your mindset going into these tournaments. Just can't wait to see how we have fun with it and how we can challenge ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, just excited for the new 2024-2025 season.
Yep. All right. So with that, we're going to go into our rogue deck of the week. And this one's a fun one.
So before we do that, I want to play a word association game with you.
Okay.
So by the time this releases, it's going to be the 4th of July in the United States, which is our Independence Day.
Yep.
So when I say 4th of July, what do you think of?
Automatically fireworks.
Me too. So what better way to do the rogue deck of the week by getting a Pokemon that reminds us of fireworks?
And so with that, our rogue deck of the week this week is going to be Brambleghast. So the Brambleghast deck, it's definitely a rogue deck. You really don't see it at many tournaments.
It's fun though when it works.
It is. It is. It does do a lot of damage. But basically, what you're running is you're running a Pineco Forretress EX line. You're also running a Dunsparce to Dunsparce line for the draw engine. And then you're running a Bramblin Brambleghast line as your main attacker. Your goal the first couple of turns is to actually get a Forretress EX built up. Because what you're going to do is you're basically going to make this Forretress go boom.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
You're going to sacrifice your Forretress EX. Because, yes, it's giving your opponent prize cards, but you're also getting draw off of that as well.
Yeah, so with the ability, you knock yourself out, and you get 5 basic grass energy, and you can attack it to your Pokemon any way you like. So,
but why is that important to you?
So with the Brambleghast, it has an ability to, for every prize card your opponent's taken, it gains more health, and then you attack. For every grass energy attached to it, you flip a coin, and you do X amount of damage per heads.
I think it's 50.
Is it 50?
It's either 40 or 50.
So we'll look that up. But yeah, it's so the point is you sacrifice 1 or maybe 2 Forretress, you get behind in prizes, and then you play the reversal energy, attach it to your Brambleghast. That's 3 edit energy per reversal energy, and then you have a bunch of basic grass energy on there, and you're just taking a handful of dice. You're rolling in, hoping you get a bunch of heads.
And I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. It is 80. It is 80 damage.
That is a lot of damage.
Now, it does take, at the very least, 1 grass and 2 colorless energy to actually do this attack. So, you do need to load this up. It's also got a 3 retreat cost. And it only has 100 HP. But like we said, so this is where the 50 came in. For each grass energy, you get 50 and HP added to it.
No, it's for every prize card that your opponent has, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Yes, sorry.
So you can add up to
250.
250, and then you play the Hero's Cape A-Spec, get
350
for a single
prizer is insane.
Yeah. And the retreat costs, you're not retreating this thing. You're probably going to get knocked out. You're planning on getting knocked out. But your goal is to hit hard, have them get off guard with, like, I don't know what to do.
This also can one-shot a Charizard EX with 2 heads.
Yeah. Which is going to be big in the when Shrouded Fables come out.
Because
that card is coming
back.
And then you have a lot more other Dark-type Pokemon coming into the format.
With Okidogi, with
Petron, all the loyal 3 EX cards.
Yep.
So it's a fun deck. we've seen it in our locals multiple times. We have someone that plays it whenever he can, and he probably has the biggest grin on his face every time an attack actually works.
Glenn playing a rogue deck that actually works. What?
I know.
So, but that is our rogue deck of the week. We haven't unfortunately had the chance to play it on live that much this week. We've both been pretty busy, but we have some friends that played it. Shout out to Joe for giving us the list that he was using on live, as well as letting us see some of the results that he had against one of our other friends and playing a Charizard EX deck, and just, I think they said the 2100 damage to 900 damage across the entire game. So lots of different ways that this does do a lot of damage for a little weed of a Pokemon.
And the good thing about Brambleghast is you see this in the Grass GLC deck too, as we talked about that format last week. It's one of the staples, or it can be a staple in that deck. Most Grass decks I've seen has it nowadays. It's a fun single prize card. The ability is really good. The attack can be awesome. It's just right now we don't have the best grass support.
Right.
But if you can make this deck work, it is a blast. And it reminds us of fireworks, so appropriate for celebrating the Independence Day this week.
Exactly. But that's all that I've got from my side. How about you, Dean?
That's all I got. Just excited for this new season. Send us your rogue decks that you want us to try out, and you never know. Maybe 1 week we'll talk about it.
Yep. And as always, if you guys see us out at locals, feel free to say hi. Feel free to ask us questions, give us suggestions, all that. We're always looking for some feedback. So, but with that, keep having fun playing your sneaky decks through the season.
See you next week, y'all.